Everybody have their dictionaries out? Okay, word of the week is contextualize. Merriam-Webster defines this word as to place in a context. And what exactly is a context? It's the interrelated conditions in which something exists or occurs. And since we're on the subject of generalizations and stereotypes, I guess this explains why none of us have any idea what the fuck these Japanese people are thinking. But let's take a stab at it. How to place Takashi Miike's Ichi the Killer in context. Would I call it an exploitation film? Yes. Would I call it a horror film? No. In rudimentary form, it's a yakuza or gangster film, a genre Miike cut his teeth on in which he often plays like a jazz improvisationalist, winding off into weird digressions. Based on a manga comic series, the film's plot is precipitated by a conniving hypnotist named Gigi who manipulates young Ichi, a boy man with repressed sexual homicidal urges, into murdering a yakuza gang boss, ostensibly for a big bag of cash. But the boss's most loyal enforcer, Kakihara, refuses to believe the boss is dead and goes on a bloody, lurid odyssey to bring him back for the simple reason that only the missing boss could give masochistic Kakihara the exquisite pain he so deeply desires. Kakihara's is the face you probably saw once upon a time on the video store's shelf or as a background graphic to an extreme cinema blog. Blonde, scarred, and with a big old Glasgow grin sewn together with steel pins, Kakihara is in such cheery company as Paul Laney in 1928's The Man Who Laughs, and Tomahawk's own personal hero, the Heath Ledger portrayal of the Joker in 2008's The Dark Knight. Even if you haven't seen Ichi the film, you've probably seen the poster. Alright, so how is it? Well, there's a lot of blood and guts, rape, jizz, torture, and general weirdness in this film, but you can get that from a lot of Japanese films, and a lot of exploitation films in general. In the context of Takashi Miike, you generally hope for something a little more, but about all we get of his deeper gifts is in his handling of the film as essentially a comedy. That's right. With people being hung from hooks and deep-fried, necks slashed and faces lopped off, Miike tunes the film to the key of comedy. Except the middle part, which veers into the almost genuinely moving subplot of a worried father and son. Family is always an understated and powerful area of Miike's expertise. And of course, the perennial Miike theme runs throughout, that our pains give us our deepest satisfaction whether we are conscious of them or not, and we will go to any lengths to secure them. Still, Ichi isn't a horror film, so I simply can't recommend it in that context. But I am a big Takashi Miike fan, so I'd like you horror buffs to see his contribution to the anthology film Three Extremes. It's a finely tuned gothic horror short called simply Box. For extreme bloodletting and terror, try his episode in Showtime's Masters of Horror series, Imprint, which has one of the most grueling torture scenes I've ever watched. This episode was so alarming it was never aired in the US, but is available on Netflix. Finally, there's one of my favorite Miike films, his 1999 horror opus Audition, a must-see if you haven't. Oh, and as a footnote, it's not quite horror, but almost. Gozu, my favorite Miike film. You have to see that. Okay, so I guess that leaves you, me, and Ichi the Killer all standing around staring at each other like a bunch of assholes. Let's contextualize, shall we? As a horror film, it's a 0. As Japanese film, pretty good. As Miike film, skillful but unexceptional. As Yakuza film, I couldn't say. I'm not an expert. As exploitation film, it's well above average. As comedy, pretty funny, for the first hour anyway, before wearing out its welcome. As extreme cinema, it's one of the greats. A marketing gimmick for the film's premiere was to hand out barf bags at the theater. And in total, an entertaining 3 stars, but mostly forgettable. And that, my friends, is the meaning of the word of our week, contextualize. We now return you to your regularly scheduled program. Gentlemen.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the Kakihara character, because I felt watching this when I was watching this he played the role like he was like some kind of a comic book villain, and I totally got that, Bill, because he does kind of dress like the Joker does, and I wonder if that was at all like an inspiration to this dude and the character he was playing, because it was a lot like I said, something out of a comic book.
Well, like, what are you saying? Like, Ichi was influenced by The Dark Knight, or vice versa?
Oh, well, the character Ichi is influenced by the Dark Knight character?
Well, the movie, the manga Ichi was 1999 to 2001. Mm-hmm. It was released, and then the movie was in 2001, and then the Dark Knight was 2008. So I was just wondering.
The Joker character has been there since the 40s. So I'm
gotcha.
I think that he kind of had was probably looking at some of those old comic books, and because he has a similar look to him, in the way he
That's
dresses. And
probably true. Yeah.
I totally noted that, and yeah, I do wonder if Christopher Nolan is into this filmmaker at all, because the Ledger Joker is into those same things, like the pain and the suffering, and he gets off on it, and it seems to excite him, as a being.
I had not made that connection, but I think you're actually onto something there. I definitely think you are, because anyone know the Glasgow Grin?
No.
It's was made famous originally in 1928 by this Paul Laney movie, The Man Who Laughs, and it's just it was a way for gangs in Glasgow at the turn of the century to take revenge on their enemies. They'd put a knife in a guy's mouth and slit his cheeks open, and this 1928 movie sort of popularized that, and then it was used again in ICHI and then in The Dark Knight. So. Yeah,
so it is all right there. Then it's all associated.
Yeah.
You could tell.
Well, did you mention that the source material was actually a comic book, Billy?
Yeah, manga.
Okay, yeah. It was. I mean, it's definitely in there, and obviously all the gangster pictures that are coming from the noir era, and everything that that Guy Ritchie is drawing on and Tarantino is drawing on for Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Right.
I want to say
all this
I am a huge Takashi Miike fan. This is not one of my favorite movies of his, but Tom, you were dying to see this for a long time, were you not?
Yeah, it's something when I got on Netflix and I was able to, and Billy, you know this because you love films from all era and all around the world. It's something it was on my queue and off my queue, and it just somehow just never got in my hands. I was dying to see this for a long time, and I wasn't disappointed. I don't think it was great in any sense.
I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, I know you really dig it. It just. Man, I don't know. I think, Joe, you said it. I need to watch this again and then probably again to really get a good feel for it.
Dude, absolutely, man.
It's hard. It's just hard to let everything sink in. I mean, you're just so in awe with it visually that it's hard to really get in the minds of all the characters in just one viewing. And I think that to give a fair review of this movie, it needs to be seen multiple times.
Interesting.
Absolutely, man. It's the first film thus far that I watched twice in preparation for the podcast. I mean, I've seen some of the other films that we've reviewed multiple times throughout the years, but I made a concerted effort to watch this film twice this week.
Why is that? You're really of this.
Oh, dude, I think it's absolutely brilliant. Honestly, I think it's absolutely one of the best films I've seen in a long time.
Whoa.
And I'm not even a gore fanatic. You know what I mean? And so, that said, guys, listeners out there, I know there's a lot of people who love blood spilling. You will
not be disappointed.
You will not be disappointed. I was going to say you won't see anything, and then I just shut my mouth because I have a hobo with a shotgun on my lip.
You want to save that comment.
Yeah.
You really
want to save that.
But listen, a guy gets cut in half, like literally in half in this film. Like, there's more blood and all that business. I mean, it's hard to watch it's hard to even see what the film's about through. I mean, you basically need windshield wipers to watch the film to see what's going on in there.
It's totally a cartoon.
Yeah, and then it becomes a cartoon, which is fine. But what the guy is doing, man, is something that the Coen brothers do with Miller's Crossing, which is make the plot of Gangsterland or whatever, so convoluted and twisting and labyrinthine, and showing and bringing us into scenes in the middle of their progression. And he goes one step further and showing bits and pieces of scenes well before they're explained, you know what I mean? And so in order to figure out what's going on here, you need to watch it twice, because the first time you see a certain image, like an image of, whatever, a killing or one character standing in a certain setting, You have no idea. You're completely disoriented. You'd have no idea what that's. It's like a rush
Right.
of information going on at you, you know? And because there's so many characters and so much going on in here, it just despite all that blood and guts that you people usually use as a crutch because they don't have a plot, this film has it's such an interlocking and complicated plot that, I mean, I was just like, oh my god, I need to see this again, and I did watch it again, and I got so much more out of it the
Wow.
second time that I needed. And then I said, you know what, to really appreciate this, I need to go and watch it again.
You really make a great comparison with Miller's Crossing, which is probably one of my all-time favorite movies, but not the first time I saw it, or not the second time I saw it, or not even the third time I saw it. When you watch something like Miller's Crossing, like when you watch ICHI the Killer, like say in Miller's Crossing, the first time you see it, like an image of like Albert Finney walking down the street, just like pumping
You
bullets
don't know
out.
why.
Yeah,
You don't know.
exactly. And then you go back and you watch it, and you really start to begin to understand exactly who everyone is. I mean, that's when it really comes to life. And it's almost like these people that could make these films like this, that could offer you, that sense of like you got to go back and watch and watch and watch. These are the good films.
Well, I honestly, I've probably watched 40 films in the 8 episodes at least 40 films in the episodes that we've, in preparation for these episodes. And like I said, I haven't been compelled to go and watch something. Like I'll put something in and I'll skip through scenes to just refresh my memory.
Yeah.
But this one I sat down and watched fully twice, just to see it. And yeah, man, I mean, I'm a fan of Mike as well, Billy.
Yeah, talk about it, guys. Please.
Sort of.
Yeah, can you talk about this guy a little bit? I am not familiar with a lot of his work. I will definitely get.
Here's my take on it, and I'm not as familiar with him as Billy is, so I'll
Yeah,
let him do it.
yeah.
But he'll probably back this up to some degree. The poetry that's in the last 3 shots or the last 3 minutes of the film, Ichi the Killer, is the basis of a lot of his other work, a lot of his better stuff, like the box that he's talking about, like Audition. It becomes like a poetry of cinema where meaning is it's broken down into. Meaning takes second place to the way that the cinema the mechanics of cinema plays on the screen, and so you're left with almost like a Lynchian sense, but it's definitely not Lynchian in flavor. It just makes it feel like you're reading a poem that is a little bit abstract in nature.
Absolutely.
Meaning that it's entirely up to the viewer to determine what they.
Yes, there's no answers. It's left open. There's probably an answer. There's probably an answer that he's got that he says. He's probably very consciously says, well, I think it could be interpreted this way, and that's why I love it,
Right.
and that's why I leave it like this, and that's what's great about Audition, and it's great about the box, which you talk about. And
What's the box? What's that about?
all right, we should do an anthology episode, Tom, and get like Creepshow and Three Extremes or something like that, because the box is one of the best short films I've ever seen.
Well, I would love to do Creepshow. I mean, that's George Romero. So, any time you want to do that.
Yeah, well, if we can do anthologies, that'd be fantastic, man. But yeah, I've seen some bad Miike films as well, so. But I'm not.
Yeah, everybody has weak ones. Billy, I'm really excited to hear about some of the things you have to say about Takashi Miike. So, if you don't mind jumping in here and letting us know, what your thoughts are.
Yeah, totally. What the film Joe's referring to and that I mentioned in the review, Box, is just part of it's a compilation that I'm sure a lot of people have seen. It's Three Extremes, and it was 3 short films directed by Fruit Chan, Miike, and Park Chan-wook, the South Korean filmmaker
Who did Old Boy?
Who did Old Boy, which is one of the best Asian films in the last 10, 15 years.
Right.
Yeah, everyone should definitely check that out. But it's virtually it's one of the best film poems ever put in front of an audience. So Yeah, the thing about Miike is that the guy does like 10 films a year, and I'm not
Right.
exaggerating. He's one of the most prolific directors in the history of cinema, and at least three-quarters of his films are almost unwatchable except as genre exercises, you know. So
That's
it's like
interesting.
school karate pictures, you know, like based off of manga, which is the Japanese comic book form.
Zebra Man.
Zebra Man, you know, but he's one of those directors you wish he did a quarter as many films and put, you know, much more time and energy into just one film. But the the advantage of what he's doing is exactly what Joe is saying. My feeling for Miki is that he's like a jazz musician in that
Okay.
he he makes films like some people play music. And if you go into the same club 5 nights a week and you play the same fucking piece of music every night to the same group of people and the same tourists, eventually you are going to get bored as shit with playing that music in the same normal way, right? And you're
Yeah.
going to start to improvise and you're going to start to do shit that you're not even sure why you're doing it, except that you're bored with the normal way of doing it.
Right.
And out of that experimentation will come moments of beauty. There come a lot of errors as well, but the moments of beauty that are purely from the gut, from an emotional and an unconscious level, and end up in this strange, beautiful place, you know. And his horror films definitely do that. Audition does that, and Box and Imprint, which is the other one I mentioned. It's part of a Showtime series, Masters of Horror. And yeah, I mean the guy's brilliant, but like Joe said, you're gonna watch it like a superhero movie or something that is just like, what the hell is this? This is like, it's not even the same director. It doesn't even feel like him, you know?
Does I mean, has this dude done anything non-violent?
Yeah, he does one. The Bird People of something. It's one of the strangest. It's a really, really beautiful, strange film about this Japanese and Chinese duo businessmen, as I recall, I saw it a long time ago, who go to a location in China, and it's these people. It's just to do research on mining in this mountain where this unique village of people live who build bird wings out of bamboo or something like that.
Oh shit!
Wow.
I think I've seen.
And
It.
it's
And Billy,
amazing. It's so poetic, and it's nothing but a character study and a sort of a like a folktale fable. It feels like a fairy tale about
Yeah,
these two guys.
Tom.
The gift that he has is in modulation. He's just an expert at modulating performance and camera and editing to an effect. You know.
Well, there's editing, man, and it's about it breaks down the reality of he breaks down the reality of a scene in editing to where it becomes almost an abstract emotion. And Tom, this is really the epitome of Miike that I found in this film was that scene where the reputable bodyguard guy picks up Ichi and takes him and buys noodles for
yeah,
him.
that's a great scene.
And he starts and it starts happening where like he's remembering himself and he sees himself in the position of Ichi as being somebody who was taken care of by the boss Anjo, who he's trying to avenge his honor or whatever it is. And you're unsure of what it is, but it's edited in such a way
The memory
that
makes a connection in the way you're viewing it that you're not aware of until almost after it's happened.
almost to the second viewing of the film, because it's like watching, because what happens in the scene that he's remembering is that he's sitting where Ichi's sitting, and then he sees the Kakehara, the blonde masochist, or I mean sadist,
Uh-huh.
sitting on the other side of the guy who's sitting in front of him. And so just the way that that shot progression plays out, and then at the same time he's thinking about what if it was his son sitting in that situation. So there's these three things that are converging with no explanation whatsoever and no build-up really, and very little exposition. But what's happening is sort of this visual poem that happens in this middle of this ultra-violent film that it's really a moment of sublime beauty. But Max, where are you, man? Have you seen this film? What's going on over there?
Oh, sorry.
You fall asleep?
No, no. I love listening to you guys. especially on Vicodin. I saw this film years ago, and I was really embarrassed because time has been limited, and I looked on Netflix and it said Ichi available for streaming, and I said, "Oh, no problem." No, it's Ichi the Killer, and I'm very embarrassed to admit that. Not that I thought it was the same film, but I wasn't able to see it, and it was way too late. And then Joseph tried to help me out by seeing the film online, and it just didn't work out. But I own Audition, and I have seen the Masters of Horror episode that Miike directed,
Right.
and I thought it was extraordinary, and that's my only exposure to this filmmaker.
Yeah.
So
well,
I am in
you're-
no way able to comment or assist. Not that I need to, because you guys are doing great on this one.
What, Billy? Max just mentioned he did an episode of Masters of Horror. Has he done a full-length feature stateside, or has he just been over there the whole time?
He works in Japan exclusively, although probably he popped up on the radar of a lot of American fans with Sukiyaki Western Django, which was produced by Quentin Tarantino, and
Right.
Tarantino has a cameo at the beginning of the film.
Is that like that weird cowboy thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, that is a strange film.
Yeah,
man.
and it's
You guys have time to watch all this stuff. I want that time. Joe, you're a daddy. When do you watch? Do you have a regular day job?
I watch like one movie a day, Max. Basically, like
Your wife
I-
scream at you?
Well, she usually watches the films with me. It's just this horror thing is really coming between us.
I think it's fucked up all our relationships pretty much.
But it's funny, Billy, how he stamped Tarantino stamped his name on that. I find that kind of interesting.
Tarantino.
And what's
is
so
a
funny
big
about
fan of-
I'm starting to get a little I'm kind of like onto Tarantino's bullcrap through this because I like his movies. Don't get me wrong, but it's like if you take a look at Jackie Brown, that's a black exploitation homage. If you look at Kill Bill, that's forgive me if I'm mispronouncing this. It's a Shambara film, which is part of the
Samurai Revenge film.
Yeah, exactly.
well, they're all
The Inglorious Bastards is like Nazi exploitation, and now he's doing Django Unchained, which is spaghetti western, which is also a part of the whole.
And it's a black
exploitation enterprise. Yeah, and to me, it's like that. All this dude is doing is just like there's no originality in that, and we'll get to that in the Hobo with the Shotgun.
Yeah.
But
Colin, this is why film nerds have been arguing about Tarantino for what is it, 2 decades now or whatever, and it's that very reason, he's lifting the work of other people,
I know.
putting his polish on it and reintroducing it to an American audience who.
Right. So the more I learn about him, the more I'm starting to get a little disgusted.
The
more I learn about film. I'm sorry, not him.
Yeah.
The more I learn about film, I apologize.
If you go into that too, the more you'll realize that what he's doing is an incredible. He's polishing it in a way that he's making it distinctly his own, which is its own kind of gift in a way. I regard Tarantino as a DJ, as an amazingly skilled DJ, but still not one who's writing most of his own music.
And Death Proof is a car exploitation film, like a Mad Max or something.
I do have an argument for that I will bring up in Hobo.
Okay.
I kind of presented. No, I mean, I think it's a really valid point, man, and I think it's actually really something that we should be talking about is Tarantino.
He's the modern DJ of the exploitation film.
Yeah, I mean, because every except for Freaks, like his name pops up on every page of notes that I have. For these films, for some reason.
Yeah.
I mean, in one way, he's doing what Spielberg and Lucas were doing for the serial films.
Fair enough.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
He's cannibalizing these films, but just to bring it back to Ichi, guys.
Right.
And something that if we're going to be, and I'd like to recommend this to the fans, I just want to go through this, and this will bring Max back into the conversation a little bit too, because these are the things he'll probably remember. Suzuki hanging by his flesh with fish on like hooks, like just suspended there, like with hooks, and while the guy is about to cut off his penis and poking him with pins in his cheek, through his cheek. Kakahari cutting his tongue off as a way to apologize to the boss, and then immediately taking a phone call on his cell phone.
That was hilarious. That's the comedy.
And then Kakahari bending back fingers so they like crunch like parallel to the hand, like perpendicular to the hand.
All the way back.
All the way back. A human face sliding down a wall in a hallway. Tracking down a gangster by sniffing the crotch of a whore.
Oh!
Punching a man whose jaws are let open by 2 slits in his mouth, and biting that man's hand till his bones are exposed. I mean, these are all the wonderful things that you'll see in this film. I mean, it is just nonstop, and the thing is that it all seems inventive and original, which is really it seems to me like it's hard to pull off. And, you know, in the film that we're going to talk about in a few minutes, they didn't pull it off to this degree where all these violent things and these gimmicks or whatever
have a meaning.
Or feel alive even.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, there you go.
How are you guys dealing with the amount of violence and blood and all?
It's just so much, and it is. And again, you got to go back and fucking watch it again just to really concentrate and just to try to tune all that shit out, because it won't be as what's the word I'm looking for? It won't be as I guess effective to because you've already seen it, so you're not kind of distracted by it. You won't be as distracted, watching it a second or a third time. So.
Because you can almost not look. It's almost impossible to look past it, and see what's going on in the actual film.
So that scene toward the end when Ichi's with that woman in that room, and he has this weird realization. Like I think he's getting the chick's going down on him, and he says he begins to realize. He says something about she wanted it because she didn't want it. I found that to be completely bizarre and fascinating. That whole exchange between the two, and he has like this really he's surrounded by like this sadness, and the actor really portrays the sadness so incredibly well.
That's something that I think that the acting in that movie in Ichi is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
That guy, the guy who plays Kakihara, I think it's Kakihara. I can never remember, but he's amazing. And Ichi, is kind of a bizarre character, but the actor really handles it. I mean, whoa.
Oh, there. He's lit up, Max.
He's having a good time over there.
Sorry.
No. Enjoy yourself.
I'm listening.
The more you have, the more brilliant we sound.
Billy, real quick, do any of these actors pop up in other films from Takashi Miike? Does he reuse any of these guys in his works?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, it's been actually I was on a Miike binge there for a while, a couple of years ago, and it's been a while since I've seen them. But I would guess they probably pop up again and again.
Do you guys want to talk about the final scene? I know it's border. We don't want to spoil it for the listeners, but there's a really some fascinating stuff there. Or should we, just say that it's very interesting because it's definitely it's some
pretty abstract.
Yeah, some really interesting shit going on there.
Yeah, what do you have to say about it, Tom?
Well, when I watched the final scene, when after Kakihara's dead, they have a scene for about 10 seconds where you see Kakihara sitting in a room kind of like by himself, and I was wondering, especially Billy, because you seem to really be into this guy, if you thought that it was Miike suggesting that Kakihara was kind of like in hell because he's surrounded by he's just surrounded by boredom. There's just no life to his existence anymore. Or was that just a flashback scene that was just thrown in there?
No, that's a cool interpretation. I didn't pick up on that. Uh, I think I always allow Mike quite a lot of latitude
Mm.
in trying to imagine what uh, if there's a meaning, what the meaning is. I I mm, Joe kind of nailed it when he called it poetry. That's editing poetry to me,
Yeah.
where it just it leaves you with a feeling of what this guy was about. It's like a flavor or a scent or something where you're in the midst of the finale, this guy's dead, but then you get a shot of him in this place, and it just stirs a feeling that flavors the next couple of shots that you're going to see.
Right.
So I didn't interpret it, I didn't have a literal interpretation for that particular shot, although online the message boards have a lot to say about that, and I mean, that's the great thing about that kind of editing and that kind of filmmaking is that it gets people talking about stuff
Yeah.
and
So
theorizing about it.
it's been
But it's
noticed before.
poetry,
Yeah.
and people are still arguing about why Hamlet didn't kill his father,
Right,
and it's
yeah.
how many fucking hundreds of years later is that. So
Right. Joe, did you get anything out of it?
Not that scene particularly, but I did pick up on a better interpretation of the ending for me. Like the first time, I was a little bit lost, to be honest with you, because there's so much going
Right.
on, but not that particular shot. And I think it was just one shot.
but
the
the
ending,
guy hanging from the tree.
the guy hanging from the tree, and why Kakahari didn't have a cut in his head when Gigi or Gigi saw him after he fell, and that kind of thing, and that's that portion of the scene. But I don't even know that it's worth I think that scene, that shot that you're talking about, Tom, specifically, yeah, it's meant to be provocative in some way, where it's meant to engage you to try to parse its meaning or whatever. But and there's so much going on here. And I'm always trying to find out what the major themes of the film are that the guy's like aiming at. And I feel like, especially with a foreign film and especially an Asian film, I feel like I'm just a little bit disconnected, culturally.
You can't
from
quite
what,
contextualize it.
Yeah, I can't quite put my finger on what they're talking about. You know what he's getting at, like the heart of it. I know it has something to do with sadism and masochism, and feeling and a boredom, and what's the end result of wanting to be utterly brutalized, and why people want to be brutalized, and how that ties in with being hypnotized and changing your identity and all this business.
Right.
And it has to, and then he brings it all into hallucinatory states of hypnotism,
Right.
and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And at the end of the film, the guy has like a kind of transcendent experience where he's finally finding the ultimate pain, which is death, and he's really just getting off on it. Like I think he says when he's falling down that shaft, or whatever, falling off of that rail, that he's this is amazing, or whatever. You know what I mean? And it's after he punctures his brain with pins.
Yeah. And Billy, that ending scene in ICHI the Killer is kind of reminiscent of the end of The Dark Knight, when the Dark Knight lets the Joker go, and the Joker's like really happy to be falling, and he's laughing and laughing, and then he's stopped from falling, and he gets very disappointed. Although in Ichi the character hits the ground, but it's there's definitely a correlation there.
You've pointed out enough parallels that the next time I watch The Dark Knight, I'm going to be taking notes on how much Christopher Nolan has ripped Takashi Miike
I'm curious
off.
too, and I'm gonna revisit Batman Begins and The Dark Knight right before I see The Dark Knight Rises this summer. So, hey guys, let's get.
Oh, sorry, Tom. Just one last thing I wanted to say was that part of the reason I don't feel stronger about Ichi is that as good as the filmmaking is, and I totally agree with everything Joe has to say on it. The total effect of it is doesn't hit me as strongly as it does in other Miike films. There's an amazing one called Visitor Q, which deals more explicitly with the themes that that are brought up here about the alienation and the disintegration of the family unit in Japanese culture and everything. And what Joe said is, I think, right on with Ichi, is that he's kind of hinting at these themes of, I think he's sort of taking on the theme of exploitation filmmaking itself in Ichi, and we are the viewers, and we are the desensitized, and we are looking for ever higher levels of punishment from our cinema.
And we're the bullied, and we're the hypnotized. And what's at the end of all that violence? And a profound sense of emptiness.
And the letdown. And the theme of the character of Kakihara is that he's seeking an ever greater thrill, and his one fear is that he'll be disappointed that it's not enough when he realizes it. And Miike is just too smart a guy to not have that be a wink and a nod towards the very cinema that he that is his bread and butter.
Right. Yeah, I was starting to come away with that. You know what I mean? Like starting to get that, and I think that hearing you sort of articulate that is like,
it rings the right.
That's exactly it, man. I mean, these people are bullied and desensitized, and they want more and more punishment and more, and
Ichi the character,
and it's about the manipulation of cinema.
Yeah, Ichi the character sits.
He's manipulated.
In front of a video game, his only contact with reality is a hypnotist mastermind, and his only connection to the rest of the world is through extremes of arousal and violence.
And here's the funny thing: is that the end of all of that, the guy is just going to walk away with the bag of money. And here's where he drops the bag of money after he sees that the killer doesn't have the kahari or whatever Kakahari doesn't have the cut in his head. He just walks away from the money after all of that.
Yeah.
After everything you've been through. He just walks away from the money because he's thinking about the kid up there, angry and still beating on the dead corpse of Ichi.
If anyone gives a shit, my personal take on Takashi Miike is that he's one of the great moralists of cinema. He's on the level of a Dostoevsky, where he's deeply disturbed about the direction that his nation and humanity in general is headed in, and looking at children and the disintegration of children's psyches is a key theme throughout all of his stuff, and it's pretty much center stage in Ichi the Killer. So
because of that kid up there is probably what makes him veer away.
All right, guys, cool.
All good stuff.
Yeah, definitely, man. Very cool stuff, man. Let's get to ratings. We'll start with you, Mummy.
Yeah, 4 stars, man. Wow. No doubt about it. I mean, it's difficult to give it 5 stars just because it's reserved for complete masterpieces. Right. And Miike, this isn't Miike's masterpiece. He's a brilliant filmmaker, but I think Audition's a better film actually. And The Box, I do need to get back and check out some of his other stuff. So
Max, you feel comfortable doing one?
What's that?
Max.
Huh?
Max. What?
Huh?
What's that behind you? Max. Max, it's over your shoulder now.
Stop it! Stop it! Tell him to put his overalls back on.
Put your overalls back on.
Billy, what are you rating Ichi the Killer?
I'm gonna give it a solid 3 stars. It's what, kids, if you love the gore, if you love it over the top, if you want to see like slasher stuff done with the skill of a major virtuoso at conducting violence and bloodletting, go see this film. It's totally worth it. But definitely when you're done with that, go check out his other stuff. Solid 3 stars.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with you on that one, Billy. I'm gonna give it a solid 3 stars. Although I do think that it might have an opportunity to go up once I get a chance to see this movie 1 or 2 more times. It's extremely fascinating, and there's just a lot to take in. I was very impressed with this dude, and I totally look forward to checking more of his work out and definitely getting back into the mind of the film of ICHI the Killer. Guys, we're going to be moving on to our last part of the program tonight. We're going to finish things off with our new DVD release review, and Mr. Joe Mummy is going to give us his introduction for 2011's Hobo with a Shotgun, starring Rutger Hauer. Do it, Joe Mummy.